Hey there, once again, Tool fans. We have finished the AEnima album, and with that, we wanted to do a little discussion on the album in its entirety. Nick's going to share with us his thoughts on the album, and real quick, I just wanted to, do the liner notes, pay a little respect to the band there. So, of course, we've got Maynard on vocals, we've got Justin Chancellor on bass. This is the first album that he did with him. We're going to see the original bassist Paul Diamore on the Undertow album next.
Okay.
We have Adam Jones on guitar and Danny Carey on drums. So we definitely want to at least mention their names and say, hey, we know who these guys are. We're looking at all their work, and it's really hard when we're dissecting them lyrically to stop right in the middle of the songs. We don't want to pause and say, whoa, did you just hear that drum line there? We heard it. We're trying to remember to talk about it, and this is kind of that space for that, where we can say, hey, they're really gluing everything together to help deliver these messages. And with that, there's a few images that we have from the inside of the AEnima album. We've got, I think Nick's going to pull up the first one here. It's of the band sitting on the couch. They have a contortionist. I looked her name up. It was impossible for me to pronounce. But this is like some of the imagery when you open this album and you're listening to Stinkfist and you're listening to those first couple of tracks. This is kind of the place that visually, I guess, you're supposed to go. And then by the end of the album, and you start to hear the references to Bill Hicks, we have the other image that I sent you of, I think you put it beautifully, we have Dr. Hicks putting Jimmy back together and putting his braces on him.
Oh, this one here? Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's what I saw. Ooh, look, Dr. Hicks is fixing little Jimmy. Yeah.
exactly.
Sure.
And so, if you wanted to put the whole album together in one sentence, that's it. It's Dr. Hicks is fixing little Jimmy. We've got this introspective look at ourselves and wishing that mom would just come and flush it all away. And we've got a dedication to Bill Hicks, a comedian who really wanted us to pull our heads out of our asses, not be so afraid, question authority. Oh, that was who was that? Tim Leary is the guy, the LSD guy. Yeah, for sure.
He's the one that went to prison. Yeah, Nixon threw him right in jail.
Right. He's the
Tune
guy
in and drop out.
That's the guy that's speaking.
Yeah.
It's not a war on drugs. It's a war on personal freedom.
Yeah.
So you're hitting all the nails on the head there at the end of Third Eye when you're talking about LSD and you're talking about, an altered state driven by a supposed quote unquote illicit substance. And it's
which
all
shows
about
up naturally in mushrooms, in cacti, in flowers. It just depends on what part of the world.
And I can tell you with some sort of firsthand experience, this image here that you just brought back up, that's what you get visually. You get these kind of fuzzy, wavy vibrations. Senses start to kind of kiss is the way I would describe it. You hear and smell things together. You see and feel things kind of at the same time. It's that, again, like you were saying in the previous video, kind of a layering effect where new connections are made. So that's the overall feel that I get from this album. I grew up to this album, and it's definitely taken on different forms through the years. But with that, enough about me. I want to know what all this means to you and Kabbalah and messages of light and messages of ego and all these themes that are very prevalent to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I back to just real quick with the LSD and the smelling music and seeing sounds and stuff like this. I mean, those are experiences that happen during acid trips or hallucinogenic trips. And what we find also is I think I read that the chemical the active chemicals in these hallucinogenics from peyote or mushrooms or whatever, that it's very similar to a natural chemical in our brain, serotonin, right? So it's
your stomach produces DMT and a DMT inhibitor. And so when you're taking the drug, really all you're doing is you're tipping the scales and then turning that inhibitor off for a brief period of time to allow you to have something that a monk might say you could teach yourself to turn that inhibitor off by remaining perfectly still and really focusing on controlling that aspect of your biology.
Well, and there's
So
a lot of
you're not far off.
there's a lot of connection between what regular and focused meditation can do for mental health. And a hallucinogenic is kind of like uh a crash course in
Yeah,
doing exactly what meditation is supposed to do over decades, right?
right. And so, just to jump right back with that imagery from prying open my third eye in that song, is
Mm.
that, you're seeing all these connections, and it's because they're trying to be blatantly obvious with their messaging at that point. They're saying,
But they're only
hey,
blatantly obvious to somebody who is familiar with the symbology. Like if we go back to this image again here, right? I haven't seen this image before, but I see there's these four people here, and each one is a little bit more corporeal than the next,
okay,
right?
okay.
And and
That's the band, by the way,
right,
sitting on
right.
in a couch. But yeah,
And is who's this one?
that's Adam Jones, guitarist.
Okay, interesting. I don't know if that's on purpose or what, but what we see is this this descent down into corporality, which is part of what we talk about with the four phases of the direct light. That as the light and the vessel play with each other, as the vessel develops from its relationship to the light, it becomes thicker and thicker and thicker, its own thing, until it becomes this corporeal
Physical.
vessel, physical. That's right. And so corporeality, this physical existence that we have, is at the very, very bottom of this final this final vessel, right? And I don't know if that's on purpose, that there's the four band members and each one's a little bit more corporeal than the next. It just reminds me of it, okay?
Yeah,
um and
interesting.
there's a lot of what's going on in their music that really reminds me of the of kind of, yeah, waking up to what the human condition is, and what the problem with the human condition is, what the meaning of the human condition is. If there's a meaning to it, then we have to do something about the problem and adjust it or correct it, right? And in fact, from the wisdom or the science of Kabbalah, I mean, there's religion at one end, and then there's science at another. And from my perspective, Kabbalah is an ancient science of human desire, right? You have a theory and you test a theory enough and it becomes law. This is really what I feel that Kabbalah has done for human desire. And if we take a quick look, I've kind of queued up a little bit of a sketch that we can work with here. I've got these four vessels, right? And they're going to be the four phases of direct light, okay? And let me just kind of give you a number one, a number two, a number three, and a number four. And number one is going to be the highest of them, right? And so what happens here is that there is going to be this light that enters the vessel and creates it as it enters it, right? That at this point in the beginning, there is no way for the vessel to distinguish itself as anything different from the light itself. That the reception of the pleasure is the same thing as the pleasure in that moment. So imagine eating chocolate for the first time. You don't have a desire for chocolate before you eat it, and the sensation of the chocolate disappears.
Okay.
Okay. So in that moment that the chocolate first hits your taste receptors, it is the pleasure and the desire at the first time. They are indistinguishable from each
You
other.
don't even know what it is. It just is.
It just is. And that's
Okay.
all of our desire starts this way. The first time we receive any kind of pleasure, it's like, oh, that feels good. And we only build the
Right.
desire for it once we experience its absence. And its absence is phase two, where the kli, the vessel, the tool Kli also means tool in Hebrew.
Interesting. Okay.
The tool, the Kli, senses itself as something dependent from the creator and rejects the light, rejects the pleasure, because its greatest pleasure is going to be the creator. It wants to be like the creator. But that's impossible. It has nothing to give. It can only receive. Kabbalah means reception. Okay, and the
Huh.
creator is constantly giving, and the creature is constantly receiving. It's two sides of a current. Okay, and so in an
Okay.
attempt to be like the creator, the creature rejects the light. Well, at this point, phase 3 comes along, and phase 3 is, I can't exist without the light. It's just, you know, if you stop, for example, when I started keeping kosher, before I started keeping kosher, I ate everything. I loved my shellfish, I loved my oysters, like, you know, and it happened that when I started keeping kosher, you know, I missed it a little bit. And then what happened also was I started to not think about it anymore, and I put the desire for shell food, for shellfish, to death. Just don't want it anymore. In fact, at this point, when I smell it, it repulses me. Right.
Mm.
So my desire for the shellfish doesn't exist anymore because I wasn't receiving the pleasure from it. So phase 2, the pleasure, the Kli that receives the light realizes that it can't exist unless it receives the pleasure in some way. So phase 3 comes along, where it it decides, I'm going to only receive enough that where I know I can do it in a way that's meant to fulfill the thought of creation, to please the creator. So I've got this thing that we call a screen. I'm trying to change the color of my line here. It's not working. I've got this screen that
There we go.
rejects the light, right? It brings in the light to the extent that it can receive it non-egotistically and rejects the rest of the light. Okay, and that light, this becomes another equation that what we talk about later.
Goes out somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it becomes surrounding light, whatever. Okay, so this is phase
Okay.
3, and there is a slow corrective process where slowly the whole Kli can come to receive all the light, 100% of it, in a corrected fashion, and that is phase 4, where it receives everything in a corrected state. It is the fulfillment of the thought of creation. It is the opposite of the creator, but it's fulfilling its function in the name of the creator. And in this way, all the pleasure comes in a non is all the pleasure is come in a non-egotistical way. There's a famous allegory about a host and a guest. You come to my house. I have this great feast of all your favorite foods. You show up and you're like, whoa, I can't eat any of this. You feel ashamed to sit down at the table and eat because you weren't expecting the big present, right?
Uh-huh.
And you come to realize, oh, wait a second, if I don't eat anything, it's going to make my host sad. So
So you must receive
you eat
something.
and you eat enough to make the host feel happy, right? This is what's
Instead
going
of
on,
just gorging yourself and receiving all of it,
right?
even
Because
though it was offered to you.
you're ashamed to do that. That's what step number 2 is about, this shame. Okay, and slowly through this process, the creature, the vessel, the tool is purified of its egoism, which is a necessary part of creation,
Right.
right? And it becomes adhered to the creator through something we call equivalence of form. Equivalence of form. Okay? Form. Okay?
Foreign.
So
That's a different video.
that's a good not here. Anyway, so I feel that, and there's also talk of the 10 Sephiroth that they come into this system of four.
Right.
It gets deeper and deeper, but I feel that this is what's going on here. And we have to understand here that ultimately Kabbalah teaches us that the creature is all of us together. I am not a creature.
It's collective.
I am part of the creature. My job is
We.
to correct myself so that the creature can attain together.
Right.
Right. And we need to come out of our individualism. We need to come out of our egoism. We need to combine together as one man, as with one heart, one singular desire that is straight to God. Remember, Israel is also read Yashar Kel, straight to God. Right. And this Israel isn't just Jews. Israel is present in all people everywhere. All nations have a portion of the nations of the world. All nations have a portion of Israel. Israel itself has the portion of Israel within Israel and the nations within it. And it's really our fault that Jews, I'm a Jew telling you, it's our fault that bad things happen because we're abusing our gift, our spiritual gift, for our own egotistical reception. And our job as a nation is to correct ourselves so that we can bring the whole world up with us. And again, outside of the idea that this is a Jew and it's his job, no, Israel exists in all of us. The nation, the actual physical nation of Israel, is just a physical, corporeal manifestation of a spiritual reality that is present in all of us. And so Kabbalah is not just for me as a Jew. Kabbalah is something for us all to look into. We don't, or those of us who feel the need and the desire, that desire for connection to the Creator, that desire for connection between all of us, the desire to fulfill the meaning of our lives. And I feel like Tool is really trying to wake us up to, come on, guys,
They are.
there's a bigger meaning to your life than just buying crap and dying, because that's
Yeah.
all the man wants.
Right. Whether that's, here with hooker with a penis, which is probably where your frame of reference is stemming from a little bit, and then also with Ticks and Leeches up in the Lateralus album. But as you say these things, for me, someone who knows the catalog, once again, I just want to let you know their latest album. There are a few songs that you could have been reading from the lyrics just now at different times during your messaging. So they do tackle this very head on. Their latest work is very, very much wake up. If this one's not, the next one that took another 13 years to come out was very much wake up. So
No, I'll give a caveat. I'm not saying that Tool, that the band of that the members of the band are Kabbalists or that they study Kabbalah. There's a lot of this symbolism that exists throughout a lot of religion and a lot of mysticism. The thing that's unique about Kabbalah is that there's actually a method with working with texts, a teacher, and a group, that you can't do it without a group. You have to have people who are spiritually your friends, who are united in the same desire together, where you can start to feel each other. And that third eye opens because you feel the needs
right,
of those other people who are committed to the one man, the one heart. You can't have a friend who's not one with you. It's not a
right.
spiritual friend in this sense. So that's I
In order
Kabbalah
to
is
attain that, in order
yeah.
to obtain the personal ego death, you have to have a
It's
group
not
of
even
people
ego
to
death.
experience it with it.
It's not ego death because that's impossible. That's our nature. It's ego expansion, to assume those people as part of your ego. And that's how Kabbalah
Huh.
offers us an escape from death.
Huh.
Because if I assume the whole of humanity as my identity survives beyond my corporeality.
Whoa.
That's what Tool is, I think, really, really giving us. That's what Tool is trying to bring to the public subliminally, or even not so subliminally, like really on top of, like, here it is, people, like your wake up
Sometimes
call and
it
for it
could seem
all,
like that.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I get from Tool in 2 albums.
Beautiful. Well,
Peace.
we're gonna jump back even further, and we're gonna go back another about 5 years to the album before this, where maybe you'll see that they're searching a little bit more. They have a message at this point, and at that point, I think you're just gonna enjoy it. I'll just leave it at that because they're
All right.
younger and a little more angry. So you know thanks so much for being here with us. If you made it this far, you probably watched all these videos to the end up until this point. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say at this point Nick is excited, as the
Very,
rest of y'all are,
very.
to jump into more of the Tool music that we have here. And from there, who knows, we're still looking for someone who might want to join us for the Undertow review at the end of the album there. That'll come up here in about a month, 3 or 4 weeks. And beyond that, we're just looking for everybody that hasn't subscribed yet to go ahead and subscribe. We'll put out new videos 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we're working our way through Tool and beyond. Besides that, thanks so much for being here.
Peace and love. We can only do it together, brothers.
Yeah.
Sisters too.
Everybody.
Goodbye. See you next time.
Bye.